Oh yeah, I've been meaning to make a video about the Swedish politics. I moved here 12 years ago, and already back then there was something wrong with the immigration here. It was like, if I place a bag of money just out there at the street with a note that I will fill it up, just take what you need. Do you think anybody would leave anything when they pass that bag? They would take it all. They would take all they could get. And of course, the refugees do that. I'm sorry for my dressing, not my dressing, my clothes. I'm outside working. And you cannot blame the refugees for doing that. It's the politician that makes it possible you can blame, but not the people that doing what they are kind of entitled to by the stupid Swedish politics. But the way the Swedish government have been administering this is also by the media. They darked out all the bad news about immigrants, about how much money the Swedish government is losing on this deal every year, how much violence there is, how much rape, how much thieving there are, and they have blacked it out. Many people are starting to come out now after the Swedish policeman came out and told about that about only 4 to 5% of the cases he has is about Swedish. The rest is with immigrants, and it's the same picture all over the country. So the immigrants kind of stands for, in most cases, 95% of the crime in Sweden, and that's crazy stuff. It's so bad that it's very illegal to have arms here in Sweden. It's so bad that in Malmö, when a foreigner, an immigrant, is caught with a gun, a loaded fucking gun, sorry, they let him go the same day. They just taking him, note it down, and because they have instruction from the politicians that the statistics has to look good in favor of the immigrants. That's crazy stuff. If a Swedish guy, first of all, it's out in all the media. If I get caught, I'm Danish, but if I get caught with a gun, it will be in all the media. Before you know it, there will be journalists talking about how sick I am, and probably I'm a racist and I was on my way out to shoot somebody of another color, just to keep that feeling of, oh, we have to feel so bad for these immigrants and blah 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 blah. But my idea about, if you're a refugee, right? If, let's say, my wife were living here. I had a wife. I had one once, but that was a bad apple. Whew, that's another story. But my wife were beating me every day, and I want to run to safety. I don't run to Berlin. I live 1,500 kilometers away from Berlin. I run down to my neighbors just down the street. There I'm safe. But if they in Berlin gave me 100,000 euros to run to Berlin, I would run to Berlin, of course. I would tell everybody my wife were beating me and run to Berlin to get my 100,000. Who wouldn't? That's just natural. But the bad thing here is the corruption and the fascism, the social fascism the government has. They have filled out all positions in government, commune, and in society with their people, either people that believe in the Finnish social fascism, or people that are kissing up to it. And it scares the crap out of me, I have to admit that. And the Swedish people are, the policeman's name was Peter Springer, right? And a Facebook group grew out of nothing from 0 to 160,000 in 2 weeks. A Facebook group that supported him. And the Swedish government and police have tried to nail this policeman 2 times now with racism and private data laws, but they couldn't, because it was fact he came with. But the only thing that speaks for having immigrants here is that they are all over Europe. We are having less and less kids, right? And the workforce is going down, and the elderly is getting more and more. So the big excuse for having immigrants here was that, oh, they will be a new workforce and they will contribute to society and blah blah blah. It's very nice to hear, but to make that work, you have to have 90% of them working, and that means women and children, not children, but women and men and people in the working age. 90% of them should be working to make it a plus for society, but from countries, how do you say it, with a special religious background. Only in the first generation, they in Denmark they have made some inquiries and some statistics about it. In Sweden it's illegal. You cannot get any real statistic numbers in Sweden because it's so fucked up here. It's all full of lies and manipulations and all cause of the government. They are so locked in on their ideology that failure is not an option. They just cannot. It's like seeing a horse with those flaps next to its eyes. They can only see that it has to be a success, and we cannot admit it's not, so we just keep lying and manipulating, and it's scary to be here now. Well, what was I talking about? Oh, the workforce, yeah. In Denmark they made some statistics in 2014 that first generations of people from those countries, there was about 53% working at some times in when they stayed in Denmark, and they were working with or without substitution from government or commune, and there's a lot of substitution there. And the other thing, the very surprising thing, is that second generation, only 48% of them were working. So it got more and more expensive along the way, plus all the family reunions we have here and stuff like that. I remember back in the 80s, a Danish newspaper made a inquiry about a Turkish girl that came up. And in 10 years, from one person with family reunion, back then it was more open back then, but in 10 years, that Turkish girl developed into 287 people. So Sweden took in 200,000 last year. Let's just say family reunion will make each person up to 30 people. Sweden is fucked. And only 48% of them will work in the second generation. Third generation is suspected to be even worse. I'm really scared for Sweden. Really, really scared. So the whole Donald Trump thing, that he was just off in what happened yesterday or whatever he said, it happens every day. Sweden is under constant attack from a failing government and media that do not report bad news about immigrants. But a really fucked up government. They have, it's fascism. It's the worst kind of fascism. And they call everybody else, everybody that is in opposition to them, are racist, intolerant fascists. And they are the worst themselves. That's so frightening. And the Swedish have bought into it for 20 years now. If you look into Sweden from the outside, you know from the first second you get to see and feel the Swedish society, you know something is really, really fucked up here. But nobody wants to talk about it. And now everybody, oh, that Facebook group for Peter Springer, it's called, the policeman. It has 220 or 50,000 members now. And they think it's enough to sit in there and write about stories. But if you want to make a change, there's another party here in Sweden that is called SD, Sveriges Democrats. But they have very strong ties, and they grew out of the neo-Nazis and really, really bad people. But they are not bad now, but the story still clings to them, and many Swedish won't vote for them because of the history of the party. The only way Sweden can survive this is if a new party came up. But they have to make an ideell förening to start that. But they are not. They are just writing on Facebook and think, oh, right. And then now we told them, and now they will change, but they don't give a flying fuck. There's too much money, too much invested in this. The government will continue until it's all burned down to the ground, and then they will come back up and say, look what you did, Swedish people, because you didn't back us up right. This happened. Now you have to back us up. We will build the country, and the Swedish will believe. They will fall for that socialist rhetoric again, and they will vote them back in to fuck them over even more. But it's a shame. It's really a shame, because the Swedish people have been brought up since the beginning or end of 1800s, beginning of 1900. It has been very feministic country. You cannot even go buy a beer in a supermarket or at a gas station or anywhere else but in a place called Systembolaget. That's a feministic thing. And we are writing 2017 and they still have it here. It's a people that is governed by the government. You know, it's so, they are so controlled and so used to it. And if the government says, oh, everything is all right, your house is not burning, and they can stand outside their house and look at it burning, they will believe the government. And if I've said that also for many years, if there came a rule, the Swedish government said that tomorrow at 12 o'clock the Swedish are not allowed to breathe for 10 minutes. You know, 7 minutes past 12 the next day, 90% of all the Swedish would be dead. I don't get it. The government can lie them up in the open faces, and they just believe it. But if they woke up now, created a new party that could work together with SD, I'm not saying they couldn't work together with them, but they have to make a new party, because too many people won't vote for that SD party there. I wouldn't. I don't like their history. I like their politics, but not their history. And history is important. If we don't learn from history, we don't learn from anything. And this is more Stalinistic a country than you would find in Korea, or it's so fucked up on feminism and socialism and control, lies. Yeah, that's it.